Wednesday. We didn't.
They can see us, by the way. Hi, everybody. Hey, CMAC. Well, CMAC is here for a bit, so I hope you enjoy the bit that you're here for.
He's here for the us part. Woohoo! Oh, you have a Strange New World shirt, not me.
Well, I didn't imagine you would have one.
You're a nerd. I'm a nerd too, but not this kind of nerd.
Well, I was going to say, I know back when season 1 first started, we watched the first episode together. But other than that, I do not believe you have ever seen an episode of Strange New Worlds. And I'm going to bet that you don't really remember anything about the first episode.
I don't remember which crew we're looking at. So
it's Captain Pike. It's Captain Pike's.
Oh, it is Captain Pike.
Captain
it's
Pike
the
and
chair guy.
the
pre-beep chair.
Pre-beep chair, and yeah, it's the pre-Captain Kirk original Enterprise. Yeah.
It's a set.
So
it's
and it's a really cool set. It's my second favorite version of the Enterprise. Inside and out. It's just a fantastic looking show. Anyway, so we're going to watch that in a few minutes. We'll do a little bit of opening chit chat.
But we probably did not as opening chit chat like 2 days ago. So
probably. And also this episode, I mean, it's not like super long, but it's a little longer than a typical Deep Space Nine episode. A Deep Space Nine episode is usually around 45, 46 minutes. This is 50 minutes. So there's an extra.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Yeah. Yeah. So
yeah. And well, I was thinking about this because I don't know what had me thinking about, being a not considering myself a Star Trek fan.
Right.
But the thing is, I mean, especially given the live streams that we do, I've watched a ton more Star Trek. Well, and the Ensign's log. I've
in the last several years, you
way more than I consider myself a Star Wars fan.
Oh, and
well, and lately you've watched more Star Wars than I have.
Because you haven't been keeping up with the Disney Plus shows.
No, not really.
You're not missing much. First season of The Mandalorian is awesome, and the Acolyte actually was pretty good. The one that just finished, The Acolyte, was not. I mean, nothing to you're not going to remember it on your deathbed or anything, but it was solid. Like, it was good, above average for the Disney Plus shows.
There, so as I'm on my way back from the Y on Saturdays, my husband and daughter watch Saturday morning cartoons together. They often watch it. So they've been watching, they finished a rewatch of X-Men.
Oh, yeah.
Wait, now hang on.
The original from the 90s, right? Yeah.
Right. Was that X-Men Evolution or is the new one X-Men Evolution?
No, the new one is X-Men 97. X-Men Evolution was after the original.
In between? Okay. So yeah.
And it's a totally different
They didn't watch that one. They watched the 90s cartoon and then they watched X-Men 97. But then they've also been watching the Bad Batch, I think it is.
That's a Star Wars thing, yeah.
Yeah. So I've seen a few episodes, or I've seen pieces of a few episodes of that, and it's good, but it hasn't I haven't wanted to sit down and of course I haven't wanted to sit down and watch Star Trek. No offense, but it hasn't been I need to see the next one.
I have to twist your arm.
No, just say, hey, we're gonna watch this. Okay. Air 1-5, that sounds pretty awesome. But
yeah.
I don't know what it is that I consider myself a Star Wars fan. And I think part of it is part of the reason that you like Star Trek is it's not that I dislike it. I just don't really care. The idea that it's our world just a little bit in the future, just a little bit of a tweak. And I'm just
that's part of it.
Our world without a tweak. Whoop-de-doo. Whoop-de-friggin-do. So
I think,
that doesn't pull me in.
What about this? Let me throw this at you. And because I think it might, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I think it may be even simpler than that.
Go for it.
You were a Star Wars fan when you were younger and you never really watched Star Trek.
Yeah, but I am anxiously awaiting the new Equalizer stuff.
I mean, yeah, maybe you watch Star Trek now and it doesn't grab you. I'm not saying you're incapable of becoming a fan of new stuff. I'm just saying because for me, it's the opposite. Although I do think I like Star Wars more than you like Star Trek, but it's are you a Marvel or a DC guy? I'm definitely a Star Trek guy. I like Star Wars a lot. I love Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
But if I have to choose, I'm choosing Star Trek, and I'm like, it's not even a
Oh yeah,
choice.
I would. Yeah, I would.
And for you, I'm sure it would be the other way. Like you'd be like, no, Star Wars. You know, you can do without Star Trek. And for me, and I think it's because I watched a lot more Star Trek when I was a kid. You know, and to be
Mm-hmm.
fair, there was a lot more Star Trek to watch. There was only 3 movies for Star Wars when I was, and plus, you know, like the little ancillary stuff like the Droids cartoon and that kind of thing. But I never really got into that. Um, but you know, I just as from a young age, I was watching Star Trek regularly, and Star Wars wasn't something that I got into semi seriously until I was a teenager. Really, I mean, I had seen the movies, but they didn't really, you
Maybe,
know,
but I
grab
didn't
me.
get into Star Wars until I didn't get into Star Wars more than a passing interest until I was in college.
But you didn't really watch that much TV or movies when you were a kid either, though. You had
Also
an
true.
you had an atypical childhood as far as media consumption.
I'm an atypical person just all
That's
around.
that's what I was saying, and when I messaged you the other day, you are of the book.
I am of the book.
You are of the book. I am of the TV show and the movie, and you are of the book.
Yeah, you know, there are families who, all right, turn off the TV. We're gonna have a family dinner. Nope, not my family. My family, the rule was no books at the table. So you know what we did instead? We read the cereal boxes, and that
Wow.
so now I can compare nutritional information like nobody's business. I'm like, okay, you know, this has this has more processed sugar. This one has more protein. You know, this one, where's the niacin? There's no what? No B
So
vitamins at all.
you actually read the cereal boxes as a
Well, you
child,
start
or
with
as
the
a
back because that's where the interesting stuff is.
sure.
And then you look at the right side because that's where there's sometimes promotional materials or something to tie in with the back or whatever.
Sure.
And then the left side has the nutritional information. And then, I mean, like the whole thing, because that cereal box, we got the big ones, the big cheap ones.
And at no point and at no point while this was going on did anyone think there should have been some kind of psychiatric intervention.
From what? Well, I didn't broadcast. This is the 3rd time I've read the nutrition panel. You know, I'm getting it's getting repetitive.
It feels like a compulsion. If your parents say no books at the table and you're like, I've got to read something, you know, well,
like the cereal box. The idea behind no books at the table is that, you know, there's going to be conversation, but sometimes there are lulls and people just, you know, kind of chilling. And so the cereal box is right there. And I'm just like, and, you know, I'm just looking at it as I'm eating my cereal. And the reading just kind of happens.
Sure.
It's not my fault.
It's by osmosis. Empire Jeff in the chat says, is it a TV show if it does not air on TV? I'm not pedantic about it. I say TV show as just kind of a catch-all phrase. Like, yes, technically it's a streaming show, not a TV show because it never aired on TV. But I watch it on my TV.
It is formatted as a television show would have
been.
It is in that form.
It's a TV show just distributed under a different method, but it's a TV show. And Sean O'Sullivan with a super chat, thank you very much, says, I was a fan of Star Trek because my brother was a fan. I later found out he was gay and I am autistic. We both found our people through Trek. That's awesome.
Maybe that's part of it, because for me, in terms of story, both Batman and Star Wars were places in which I found community, specifically online, to talk about fan theories. You know, in my case, well, both of our cases, write fanfic. Though I don't know that you've written any Star Wars fanfic, have you?
I've never written Star Wars fanfic. No.
And so yeah, those sorts of things, that building of community, it may be possible, because I mean, this is my only interaction with Star Trek. I almost said Star Wars again, but it's not Star Wars. This is Star Trek. I know the difference.
You know, and you bring up fanfic. That's I feel like I just realized something as we've been talking about this, and I'll say this, and then we can start watching the episode because I don't want to get too late. But one of the big differences between how I think about Star Wars versus how I think about Star Trek, and I think it might be related to the fact that, and Siamak kind of brought this up, like there was new Star Trek being made when I was a kid, and at the time there wasn't new Star Wars. Mm-hmm. And then when they started making new Star Wars, I started to think maybe they shouldn't make new Star Wars because it was the prequels, and I was like, we were good with the original trilogy.
No, thank you.
but and Star Wars and Star Trek is even though there are movies, Star Trek is primarily a TV show, and you're a new episode every week. So I just got more in a mode of I liked Star Trek in a way that made me want to see more.
Hmm.
And Star Wars, maybe because when I first got into it, Star Wars was three movies that I loved, but three movies.
And that's it.
I never related to Star Wars in that way. I never thought I want more Star Wars, you know,
Because that was what you got. That
because
was.
because I assumed that was all the Star Wars there was, and I was happy with that, because
Mhm.
I thought those movies,
A lot of
especially
things that we like, you only get one movie.
that's true,
Think about
and
that.
and
They're so
when
great.
they started making new Star Wars, I was I watched it, I was curious, and then I didn't like the prequels, and I still don't like the prequels, but when
Mm.
they brought it back for the sequel trilogy, I was like, all right, I'm in, I'll go see it. But I didn't feel like this. It didn't feel like with Star Trek where it's like it could just go on forever, because with Star Trek, just the way you could keep reinventing Star Trek forever. And I mean, you could do that with Star Wars too, but I just don't see it that way. I don't
Mhm.
relate to it in that way. So like, it never even occurred to me to write Star Wars fanfic, because I'm like, well, what would it even be about? Like, I don't feel like I have any Star Wars stories, like what would it even be about? But the people who read the comics and played the games, and like they're the ones that are the fanfic writers, because that's
Story
where the new
time.
stuff was. Yeah, go ahead.
So you remember the Goss, right?
Of course.
So that was what I'd completely forgotten about this. Well, I mean, it comes up from time to time, but the Goss is what got me into Star Wars.
Okay, because for people who don't know, the Goss is the Gotham Gossip, which was a Batman chat room that Dana and I used to hang out in the late
As
'90s.
part of like
Um,
the most popular, and it was fan run. I mean, this is
yeah,
way
it was
bigger
an
than anything
unofficial
DC
website.
Comics
Yeah,
did. The unofficial website, but
yeah,
dedicated to Batman and the Bat family and things like that.
yeah.
And it was, I mean, repository, fanfic submissions, and character backgrounds, and
Oh yeah, it was cool. It
story
was cool.
summaries, all kinds of stuff. And so there were web rings and things like that, sort of the pre-social media internet.
Yeah,
And do you remember where it was like sort of there was some kind of competition for like the best fan site on the web?
I remember this. Yes,
Yes.
yes.
And the site that beat us out was a Star Wars site.
Oh, so you checked it out?
So I checked it out, and I mean, it had its own chat room, and so there were people talking about it, and that got me talking about it. And so this was while I was in college, and one of the girls on my hall said, well, I know somebody who runs a Star Wars, or yeah, Star Wars game. And I was like, what do you mean a Star Wars game? And so she introduced me, and I got together, and that's actually how I got into tabletop role playing, because it was the Weston Games D6 version of Star Wars.
So the
And
story takes a dark turn at this point.
well, that was really what got me into the idea that Star Wars was more than the movies.
Right.
First through the website, because I mean, of course, a lot of people on the site had also read the comics and the tie-in novels and the Timothy
Yeah.
Zahn books and all this other stuff, the extended universe, that and Star Wars movies. It's a thing.
Right.
So I sort of started seeing that, and I got into I think I was introduced to the tabletop role playing first, and the idea that you could create your own character. And even then, it was earlier days, but the idea that you could tell your own Star Wars story really started to pull me in. And I think from there, like I grabbed some of the I have I Jedi, and I have the Timothy Zahn trilogy, and a couple of others, and then some of the compilations. Stackpole's books are really good, the X-Wing series. And then some of the collections, Tales of the Bounty Hunters and Tales from Jabba's Palace, some of those are really good too. So lots of just little things here and there. And the way that they explore just, all over. Some of them have nothing to do, or are only tangentially related to like the plot and the characters in the Star Wars movies. But the fact that you can just kind of, I mean, there's a whole galaxy out there.
Indeed.
So, yeah.
Indeed. And with more than 5 people in it.
Indeed.
Despite the impression you may get watching some of the newer shows. Like, aren't there more than 5 people in this franchise? I'm pretty sure. And also they're allowed to invent new people. I'm fairly certain.
That was
one of the things I really liked about the Acolyte. As I mean, like I said, it's not It's
I
nothing that'll
remember you.
blow you.
I remember you complaining about the last
Yeah,
part of the last episode.
they throw in like a legacy character in literally the final shot. Up until that, I think that there's another legacy character or another tie-in character who kind of appears briefly in the last episode, but I didn't recognize them, so I don't give a fuck. But and he didn't really do anything. He just kind of peeked out and was like, "Hi, I'm here." But yeah, it's there's no Luke Skywalker stuff. There's no stuff that ties into the prequels. It's not like a live action continuation of one of the cartoons. It's an original story with original characters. And I'm like, oh, hey, why don't they just do more stuff like this? Like, why isn't this just all they're doing? Because that's mostly one thing. Like, that's mostly what season 1 of The Mandalorian was, and that's what I loved about it. Is that it's
its own
new,
thing.
It's new people,
like it's still
telling
in the universe,
new stories.
it still has that feel to it.
Yeah,
but it's different.
It's
well,
different.
and then the thing that sort of after episode 1, crash and friggin' burn. The thing that picked me back up was the Star Wars: The Old Republic, the online multi MMORPG.
Yeah.
Blech. And so the fact that they had like your player character would have its own several supporting characters and you'd interact with them a lot. It was much more character driven than World of Warcraft was, which I played and was kind of interesting. Go around, explore. But yeah, the character driven story there was great, and that got me back into the stories. And of course, it's like Luke, Leia, Han. They ain't in it at all. They're not there. So it's just really interesting.
One super chat from Sean O'Sullivan, and then we'll start the episode. Your trans flag annoys me. It's so small, but it's tucked up, right? It's
tucked up. So
it's a full flag.
It's a full size flag. I tucked it up so that you can see like my flamingo and my little camera. And speaking of, I don't know if you can see him there. Let me turn it down there. My little Boba Fett helmet mug there. I tucked it, and you also kind of can't see the red stripe is off screen, but
it's sort of framed out. Yeah. Okay. So we're doing this the same way we do it on Trek Reluctantly. So do you want to tell everybody how this works?
Yes. So hopefully, so we noticed this. Go ahead, make sure you've got the episode loaded up. You want to go to 0000. So if you're on Paramount Plus, like we are, make sure you hit play because Steve had a preview before his.
And then also you have the little Paramount Plus logo, which is about 7 seconds. And so play past that.
I didn't have that either.
We didn't. Wow,
that was the other
you
thing.
hit the jackpot.
So make sure you get to 0000 because there might be some stuff in front.
Yeah.
And then you'll have
the first
a dark
thing, and after we push play, the first thing you'll see is the Star Trek, the swoopy zoomy Enterprise, the da 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 da. Yeah. So we're gonna watch all of that.
And then pause it, and if you need to go back and get it to zeros, you're good. Now, after we get started, there's going to be a time doohickey thingy, time clock up here.
Yep.
And so if you get off track, you can go back and just check it. So it's all good. So it doesn't have to be exact because we're not singing along. And then so make sure that you got the play queued up, and then Steve is going to count us in. He's going to say 3, 2, 1, play. And when Steve says play, we all click play and we watch the episode together. Ta-da!
That's how it works. All
right.
Jonathan, when you're paused at 0, you should just see a black screen
and the little play icon.
It's season 1, episode 6. Lift us where suffering cannot reach, and it should be 0000 out of 5035. That's the full runtime. So you want 0 out of 5035. Okay.
That anymore. Ugh. All right, I'm ready. You ready?
I'm ready. Okay, everybody, here we go. And like Dana said, the time code will be up there. So if you need to catch up or whatever, that's how you can do it, and you can follow along. Here we go. In 3, 2, 1, play.
Okay, so while we're getting the swooshy thing, I'm going to reply to Air One Fire. So one of the things I liked about the Old Republic was that you could pretty much play through it solo because you had your companion characters around to help you. So it's you don't have to play it as an MMO. There just happen to be other players around. I always played it solo. Well, not always, but almost. People suck. Also, I suck at video games.
All right, watch the previously now.
Okay, okay. Oh yeah, blah 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 blah. Except for the fact that you said routine. You say that, it makes it not be. You'll find out after lesson 6 and before lesson 8. That was the only I was thinking. So I'm like, wow, hair gel in the future is impressive. Mm. Mm. Significant glance. actually don't mind splitting infinitives, but I really would like this to be to go boldly so that you can put a beat there and really, pull out that boldly. And just from a stylistic perspective, I just don't like it as much.
I do. I really like Anson Mount's read of that narration.
Is that this one?
That's the one that we just heard. Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice.
Because, yeah, Anson Mount plays Captain Pike. Um, well, because it's so like, it's because the Shatner and the Patrick Stewart versions are so deeply ingrained. It's difficult like to come up with a new way of doing it that sounds natural instead of just like because the way he does it, he's much more relaxed. The pacing is a little different. It doesn't sound like he's just reading the Shatner version in his voice. You know what I mean? Like it he makes it his own in a really nice way. Shots fired from Azalea.
Well, Azalea, I agree. My point was more that I'm not quibbling about that because it's a split infinitive, but because I would prefer to have it set off. And it's difficult if you say to boldly go, it makes it one phrase, and I want boldly on its own. So it is a stylistic. People think it's because it's a split infinitive. No. This pretty girl. Maybe in her understanding Azalea Jane, she hasn't even been in there long enough.
Right.
It's like been an hour. Nice face. Gee, wonder what that saying means.
I'm sure it's not grim foreshadowing of any kind.
Of course not.
Air one fire, don't jinx it.
Oh, because you're not watching the episode.
Snake Bait Cat, that's pretty good.
I like that.
I love this episode, but that's pretty good.
What about you can't make an omelas without breaking eggs? Every cook
Oh,
will
that's
tell you that.
perfect. Perfect.
But look what happened to the cook.
Quit fucking up, Uhura. God. It was future Two Face. Space Two-Face. Space Face.
Spoo face.
Self same synonym. He was rooting around through stuff. He found it because he was just rooting around through stuff.
Besides, it's the future. They have, technology.
Yeah, sure,
They can
exactly.
see all kinds of stuff.
He probably had like a little thing in his ear that was chirping, telling him there was something under there. See ya, Mac. Yeah, a peaceful transfer of power. I know, right? Air One Fire. Yeah, you can watch this show without having seen other Star Trek. That's one of the things that's so great about it. Whip them out. Damn. Guess there's no stunt setting on those things. Yeah.
So they only have one charge? Why ain't they shooting at him?
I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. See him act pew pew like it was poof.
Action, Pike!
Maybe it should be. I mean, if
He's threatening him. He's not going to threaten him by saying it's on stun.
well, if they want to talk to they, I mean, my guess was they weren't shooting him because they wanted to talk to him. Exactly. We just want to talk. So if Pike kills him, they can't talk. Excuse me. Which
Huh?
one's Leanne? Which one's
Oh,
Leanne?
she's the chief of security who's working with Uhura. La'an.
Oh, okay.
The one who just gave Uhura the chips to
Okay,
translate.
I thought that was who else did they say it was?
Well, she's Lieutenant Noonien Singh. Her first name is La'an.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was Noonien was her first name and Singh was
No,
her last
it's
name.
it's
But
hyphenated. It's hyphenated. Noonien
okay,
Singh.
see, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, gee, I don't know. Okay.
Harp, harp. I think about me a lot. Again, future hair gel.
Not a hair out of place.
Oh, maybe they just, spooned.
Sure.
Wait, but we weren't supposed to have this stuff. Because it's extremely urgent, sir. Indeed, OG girl boss. Hmm. Well, CMAC, we're still watching. We've got some time here. So,
no
you know,
pause. No pausing,
take the
CMAC.
take your iPad with you and you know, move the laundry and then come back for the chit chat.
There you go.
The music, dun dun dun.
Yeah.
Eric, I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
I didn't notice self-same syndrome. Linda Jones, I saw that. I didn't realize that I didn't put that together. Yeah.
The end.
Dun, dun, dun. Oh, excuse me. So
Thoughts?
my primary thought is it's really too bad that Pike was the one who went through all that, because Spock would have been much more fine with it. The needs
You
of the
think so?
many, after all.
Well, maybe, but it's also the suffering of an innocent person who, at least by the standards of our society, does not have the ability to consent to something like that. Like, even though they say, oh, he gives himself freely to it. Yeah, but what is he, like 8? He doesn't have the ability to do that. You
Doesn't
know?
he? I mean, one of the
Well,
things
according to
that
them,
they
he
do,
does.
well, but also, I mean, one of the things that they do to make it more, um, uh, not just more palatable, but more argument worthy, is, you know, they show that he is incredibly knowledgeable, intelligent. You know, his cognitive processes, at the least, are highly advanced.
Yes, yes. Megan, it's not just you. um, I think this is yeah. I think this is a great Pike episode. I mean,
Yeah.
they put him in a situation where it's not just a matter of principle for him. Like obviously he's the Star Trek captain, so of course he can't be okay with what's happening to this kid. But they also give him a personal stake in it, where walking away from Majalis in this case doesn't. It's not just a matter of him refusing to condone what they're doing to the first servant. He's also turning his back on the possibility that their technology could help him someday after he winds up in the beep chair. So it's a not just a matter of principle for him, but also it's a personal sacrifice. And also he clearly had feelings for Allura, and there was the possibility that there might be something in his future with the two of them. And he has to turn his back on all of that. My favorite moment for Pike, and to me it's, and then I want to talk about the Omelas stuff because there's a lot to discuss about that, but um to me, it's one of the great character defining moments of Captain Pike. And it encapsulates why I love him so much as a character and why he's such a great hero, is that he fights to free the child. He doesn't just stand there and watch it happen unhappily. You know what I mean? Like it would have been fine because
Mm-hmm.
they were holding him back, right? He was restrained. So they could have gotten away with him just watching it with horror and disgust, but
Mm-hmm.
he tries to fight to free the kid. And then he gets knocked out. And the first thought he has when he wakes up is, I'm going to go get that kid out of there. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's what a hero does. Who knows how many hours later, like he was knocked out. He wakes up, first thing on his mind, I got to go get
Get
that
the
kid
kid.
out of there. It's fantastic. Um, but so the Omelas thing. Um, I know when you and I have talked about that story, and of course, and we've also talked about the not it's not a companion story, but like the story that is a response to it, written
Mm-hmm.
years later, which is The Ones Who Stay and Fight. To me, one of the great, I guess, innovations, or one of the cleverest things the writers of this episode do in adapting Omelas and finding a way to give that story a plot, because the actual short story doesn't have a plot, is they use the idea of the people who walk away, but some of them come back to
Mm-hmm.
try, to try and at least to try and save this one child, if not to
Mm-hmm.
tear down the entire system. So it kind
Which
of
would
plays
tear
with,
down the entire
yeah,
system.
presumably, yeah. That's how Allura makes it sound. Like if they don't have if they don't have a kid plugged into that machine at all times, that it all goes, belly up. But I love that as being the catalyst of the plot. Is like yes, there are the people that walk away and they moved to that other planet, but some of them come back and
Mm-hmm.
try to fight and try to help the kid. And I love that they not only do that, but they make it a mystery. Like they don't reveal it until right near the very end, when there's that. I mean, by the time the actual reveal happens and you realize what's going to happen to the kid,
You
y-
know,
there
if you haven't figured it out, you
yeah,
haven't watched much
you've
Star Trek or
yeah,
read
you've
many books or
they've
anything.
I mean, they do a good job of not making it obvious for the entire episode. But by the time you get to that point, it's like, okay, there's another shoe about to drop here. Like something bad is going to
Yeah.
happen to this kid. This society is going to turn out to not be all it's cracked up to be. But they make that
All
a
you got to do
build.
is listen to the music.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But they make it a build, and they make it like a gradual reveal. So then when the other shoe does drop, it's like, oh shit, you know. Um, So I really like that part about it. But what were some of your thoughts about it?
Um, I like the way meh, I'm fine with the plot about, the um terrorists, kidnappers, whatever.
Yeah,
Where but I think it makes sense to essentially have someone visit and, and then walk away, because you get that outsider's perspective.
yeah.
So I think that's really the only way to tell the story. Um and I think Azalea Jane pointed out, yeah, you don't have anybody living in squalor in the Federation. Like, that's part of the
Well,
point of the Federation.
that's that. I mean, that's
Which,
the standard talking point. But I mean, as we see on some of the other, like Deep Space Nine, makes it clear that everything is not perfect in the Federation. Like, and actually, and we've seen even in TNG, like, yeah, things are pretty perfect on Earth, but we've
mhm,
also seen like Federation colonies where things. I mean, they're not like nightmare dystopias, but
right.
you don't get the
Yeah, like,
impression that everything is perfect.
yeah, I mean, and also living in that kind of utopia, um, it's squalor is relative, you know. So it's uh um Philip, I was when you said she said she when talking about the next first servant, I was thinking no, they haven't already been selected. More that I was thinking they probably just alternate between
Yeah,
it is yeah, alternate between boys
it's
and girls
boy, girl.
so that it's fair. Um so yeah, I was going someplace with that and then seeing that comment distracted me.
Oh, this Federation Utopia.
Yeah, so squalor is relative,
Yeah, okay.
no life is perfect, but I would this and they don't know what actually happens to the kid. The kid is suffering in some way because he doesn't have access to their utopia and he's at least alone. I mean, but he's able to live for some period of time. This doesn't seem to happen every month or something.
Right. Well,
um
we see what it looks like when they have to unplug the old kid. I mean, that the previous first servant did not look in the best shape,
right.
you know.
So yeah, so it's a very well, and but at the same time we don't know what sort of not good physical condition, but not necessarily if there are analgesics applied or whatever. But
No,
I
well,
mean,
no, I don't know if you caught it, but Pike asks her at the end, "Will he suffer?" and she says yes.
she says yes, but again, just like she says, she implies that there's squalor in the Federation. That's subjective. She says we don't know what happens to him. I mean, because you could just as easily argue that the suffering is that he is cut off from them and completely alone
I feel
for
like that's
an extent.
overthinking it. I think that's overthinking it. It seems. I mean, I think we're in. They wouldn't show us the shriveled husk of the last kid if we weren't supposed to think that it was a physical suffering, not just theoretical. Like, oh, he's cut off from society. You're like, no, it hurts when he's in there. I think is the point we're supposed to take from that.
um MK was Tasha Yar on a Federation planet?
Yeah, they never really the colony where Tasha grew up. It's referred to as a failed colony. I don't know if it was meant to be a Federation colony or not.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure if Tasha's
Yeah.
homeworld counts, but I mean we've seen enough of the, and also let's not forget, and this is where I think it's important to be able to read things on multiple levels. Remember, the Federation is the United States.
Mm-hmm.
The Federation metaphorically is the United States. Primarily, you can read it as like Western civilization in general, but primarily Star Trek is
Federation is
originally, and
us.
yeah, Star Trek is originally an American show. It's produced first and foremost for an American audience. The Federation is the United States. So when Allura is saying to Pike, "Can you say that no one in your society suffers?" for your prosperity, like we know, well, that's definitely the case in the United States.
Yeah,
Like
that's
lots
true.
of
But I
people
mean,
suffer for our prosperity.
it is representative. But at the same time, I mean, for me, I would say, that is one way in which the Federation is not the United States, because we haven't made the effort to, provide for everybody's needs, et cetera, et cetera. But I would posit that in the Federation, the idea is that the idea is that we attempt to meet everyone's needs, and that suffering is, problems are sort of spread out and shared. And so she talks about how, we all share in his suffering because, we care about him.
Yeah. I don't
Not
know
the
if
same.
that's how that
Not
works.
not not the same. So I think it makes it, one person suffers a lot so that nobody else has to suffer at all. No. I mean, because essentially what it does is it says, especially if you take it as the Federation is the United States, it says their way of doing it's wrong, ours is right. And I don't think we can. I don't think that,
Well, but
the
see,
analogy sort of starts to.
I mean, I think it's challenging, and I think that's part of the point of it, part of the way they present it in this episode. And honestly, I think it's kind of the way it's presented in the original story too. Because it's easy to look at the story of Omelas or the story of Majalis and see, oh, they, center all of their suffering on one innocent child. And, the child is the one who bears the brunt of all the pain, and everybody else gets to live happy, prosperous lives, free from pain, free from suffering. Aren't they terrible people, because they're inflicting this on an innocent child? But then the reverse of that is, well, yeah, but I mean, yeah, the way our society is different from that, but our society also requires people to suffer in different ways, you know. And I think it's meant to be kind of a challenge to say, like, is the way we do it all that much better? Is the Federation's way doing it all that much better? And not necessarily, I don't think you're necessarily meant to conclude, well, no, it's the same, because I don't think it's exactly the same. I
Yeah.
don't think they're morally equivalent, but it's just the point of, well, our hands are not completely clean. Like we aren't doing what they're doing on Majalis, but our hands are not completely clean, you know. Thank you, Megan. Megan just became a member at the 99-cent store level. Thank you very much.
I was sort of nodding and I said, as you were going along with that. And then you went a different place than I was going, because my brain was going, our hands are not completely tied.
Well, that too, sure.
And, because she talks about they are looking for a different way to run their architectural model, essentially.
Yeah.
But there are even beyond stealing the kid and letting everybody die, there are other options available. And it's interesting that, so some of them have headed off to this other colony. And it's interesting that I guess maybe they don't know about the Federation.
Oh, you mean like the other colony would have contacted the Federation?
Contacted the Federation, or of course, if they're intent on destroying their original world, the Federation may be like, yeah, you can join us, but then you got to give up on, the whole Civil War thing. And they're like,
yeah,
no, we'll stick with the Civil War. So yeah, not a whole lot better, but there are other options. Although of course they're somewhat prevented from communicating with their home planet, due to the interference and the fact that they're viewed as traitors. So it's just MK, I don't know. I think
you don't. I mean, Star Trek is nothing but morality tales. First of all,
and it's highly speculative. It's very much a what if story. So I think that definitely fits into Star Trek's Bailey
I mean,
Wick.
honestly, with a few changes, I don't think that if I don't think if this had been an episode of Star Trek in the 60s, I don't think it would have been as graphic in certain places. Like, I don't think we would have seen the body of the
The
child.
kid, yeah.
But I could see this with a few changes easily being an episode of classic Star Trek. You know, with Kirk in Pike's place. I mean, Kirk's story would have been a little different because Kirk doesn't have the injury fate that Pike
Hmm.
has. But just in terms of the morality play aspect of it, I feel like this could have easily been a classic Star Trek episode. Um,
CMAC, I would say relocation, it seems like it would be an option, but keep in mind, I mean, that brings up the whole, they would have to relocate everybody, and, they would lose a lot of their technological progress because that other place, the colony, does not have um, the infrastructure to support it.
right,
So
right,
people are going to get injured, people are going to get sick, people are going to die when they otherwise wouldn't, and you're trading that for the well-being of this one person. But the one thing that it occurred to me is, of course it's a kid. Of course it's a kid. So how old is old enough that it'd be okay?
well, yeah. I mean, no, there really is no age where it would be okay.
But yeah, I feel
But
like
yeah,
I would be interested in seeing a story like this that's done with, the ascension of somebody who is an adult, maybe even somebody like our age,
yeah,
middle-aged Steve.
pre-middle aged.
Somebody who are we, who the wrestler guy that we were talking about.
Oh, our truth.
No, was it him? Somehow we came about somebody about being 50 and they've had a good life. I think that sort of
Yeah,
factored
our
in there.
truth. Yeah, because
Was it him?
he was the one. Yeah, because he's like in his 50s now. Yeah.
Right, but we were talking about somebody dying. Was it him? And we say, oh,
Oh
it's
no,
not a big deal
maybe we
because,
were talking about something else. But we were talking about our truth today before we went on the air
yeah.
just now.
But it,
But
it was
anyway,
somebody in their 50s where they weren't like elderly,
right.
but they're past, the early adulthood.
Oh no,
And
okay. It was the one of the spoilery cameos in Deadpool that I don't want to give away. But yes,
right,
yes,
okay, so yes,
yes.
yeah, they've had a good life, even though they haven't had a super long life. They've had, a fairly long life. So yes, somebody in their like early 50s would be perfect. And then so it becomes, I mean, they're not the easy, oh no, it's terrible to do this to a kid. And they definitely have the maturity to say, yes, I'm choosing to do this for my people. Does that make it okay?
I think, as CMAX says, I think with informed consent, I'd have less of a problem with it. I think that it would still be a society that I would have trouble. I would feel morally conflicted, like relating with it. Like I wouldn't, the fact making it an adult instead of a child would not make it okay.
Mm-hmm.
But I do feel like it would make them seem less like monsters. Like it wouldn't make it okay. It wouldn't make it like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, well, the first servant consents and he's an adult, so it's fine. No, I wouldn't be fine. But it wouldn't be the kind of thing where it would, you know, it would seem like an absolute horror.
An instant
Like,
horrific,
yeah,
terrible thing.
the fact that he's a child. And also, and I love this about the episode too. I love how likable the first servant is, and I love how much time they give him in the episode, so
Mm-hmm.
that they establish his character, that he not
Yeah,
only he's not
that's
only is
smart.
he a, not only is he a smart kid and he's like a little boy genius, but he seems really sweet and
He
kind.
wants to make a
And
friend across the
yeah,
galaxy. Come
he's
on.
just a great kid. So I mean, and you don't realize it until you get to the end. That's just twisting the knife, so that when what happens to him happens, it hurts you. It doesn't just hurt Captain Pike, and it doesn't just hurt the first servant. You like this kid. You don't want anything bad to happen to him. And then when it happens, it hurts you. And
Yeah.
damn, that's good writing. And drives the point home, you know. You're going to tell me you didn't care about that kid. You're going to tell me when the kid gets plugged into that fucking chair that you didn't feel bad for him.
I didn't. I'm sorry. Does
Oh
that
my
make me a bad
God.
person?
You're
I'm
a
sorry.
teacher. You relate to children all the time.
I I knew it was going to be emotionally manipulative.
You're a
I
monster.
had
You are a monster, not the people on Majalis. You are a monster. You don't feel anything. You don't feel anything for that poor, innocent, kind-hearted child who was afraid. That's the other thing. That's the final twist of the knife. Right before they put him in the chair, he's afraid.
Mm-hmm.
He falters.
Yeah, and he was brave. He was afraid, and he did it anyway. That's what I felt. I felt really proud of him.
Oh,
he was afraid, and he did it anyway, and he knew it was going to be bad.
He's a role model if you think about it. That's
as I tell myself and my students relatively often, own your choices.
Own your choice, 8-year-old who was coerced by his society.
No regrets.
No regrets. That's the tattoo that the first servant has now.
Streaming media is, but maybe it's because I'm a teacher that the suffering of a child.
Your heart has been hardened over the years. Like I could live with a kid being plugged into a torture throne.
So yeah, but we were talking about that it's easier. Where do I go? Me No Other, you said they said the machine would not work with an adult brain and body. Yes, we're saying in changing the story, obviously that would have to change. Yeah. But my thought is, CMAC mentioned informed consent. So, and our argument is that it's not informed consent because he's a kid. So, I start thinking about at what age do we start thinking, like, if this, it helps that he's 8, that helps to make him, he's not just, it makes him more relatable. It's easier for an 8-year-old kid to be cute than it is for, a very small kid who's, not as able to engage with adults. Mm-hmm. And then they get a little bit older and they seem almost adulty. So they're not as, oh no, it's a kid. So it doesn't play on those emotions as much. And so, thinking about exactly where that line is interesting to me, but also informed consent in the sense that they have groomed him for this. They are literally groomers.
Yes.
Right. But an adult would have had more years and years and years of indoctrination. And I think you could tell a really good story about that where an adult is like looking forward to this. This is what I've been training for. This is my purpose. I'm looking forward to this. And then they see what's happened and what it's like, and they're scared and they're uncertain, and they're finally able to question this indoctrination. But if they step away, everybody they care about is going to die. And they'll die too, of course. Let's not forget.
Yeah.
So, I think the story could be done well with an adult. And I think it would be interesting to see how we relate to it differently in that way. That would be pretty,
I know when this episode first aired and I gave it a really good review, and I would still give it. I think it's one of the best episodes of the series so far. I think it's a fantastic episode. But I remember when this episode first aired, there were people, and I haven't seen this sentiment expressed in the chat, so I guess maybe nobody feels this way, or if they do, they're just not expressing it. But there were people who really didn't like this episode because of what happens to the kid.
Made them uncomfortable.
And some of that, I mean, there are fans, especially of things like Star Trek that's been around for a while, and people get really, like, there are fans that are overly attached and they have a very, and there's nothing bad about it. That probably just means they're incredibly empathetic people. But like, if something bad happens to a character they like, they don't like the episode. You know what I mean? Like if they like a character and then that character suffers a painful fate as a part of the story, that's like that. Nope, I can't. And I put up my review of it like a couple years ago when this episode came out, and the overall reaction was very positive. I think this episode generally has a really good reputation. But there were people who, I think some of them commented on my video and they said, I hate this episode. I can't believe they killed that kid. And I was like, he's a character in a story. Like, and
no child actors were harmed in the making of this episode.
Nobody actually killed anybody. He's a character in a story. And the fact that he suffers and that you feel that suffering, that means that the writers and the performers, the filmmakers did their job. That's what stories are supposed to make you
outward and do something about it in the real world.
Exactly. It on two levels, it did its job. It not only it made you feel something real for those characters, for those make-believe people. It made you feel something real. And hopefully it also made you think, well, that's an incredible injustice. What happens to that child? Oh, what about the real world equivalent of that? Or what are you going to do about that? So it's,
That also may be why it bothers me less, is because I know that I am doing things like I can literally, picture kids that I have worked with, people or now at this age, kids of kids that I've worked with who I have been able to do something for. And where was it? Their society is better than ours. We sacrifice children for monetary gain all the time in the U.S. healthcare system. I mean, I don't, and I work against it, and I am doing what I can to push for nationalized healthcare, a public option for everybody. And, yes, I believe that everybody should have access to healthcare, especially as a public school teacher. Public education is a public benefit. It is a public good. We all should have. I benefit from other people being educated. I benefit from other people getting to go to the doctor and get checked up and get medicine when they're sick, because then they ain't breathing as many germs on me. Yeah. It's like it boggles my mind that this is that anyone would object to this at all whatsoever.
Another thing is there's a difference between where was it earlier in the chat? I think it was Azalea who said, the first servant is the global South and the West is Majalis, and it's almost not an exaggeration. The difference in the story, and I think this is true for the Le Guin short story that this is inspired by and for this episode. In the story, it's direct. It's literal. It's these people in this society all knowingly, directly benefit from the suffering of this one child. And in our reality, in our world, it's essentially the same thing happening, just spread out much broader. It's not the suffering of one person, it's the suffering of groups of people, but it's more indirect.
So we're not the Federation, we're Majalis.
We benefit from poverty and from people living under low standards and from the suffering of people. And
kids mining metal in strip mines in Africa that goes into our devices that makes this possible.
And things we do, yes. And by participating in this system that we were all born into, and none of us as individuals.
Yeah, there's no ethical consumption under capitalism.
We're complicit, but our contribution to the suffering of any one person is indirect. It's real, but it's indirect. So we can at least have that much separation and say, well, I mean, it shouldn't make us feel that comfortable. It shouldn't make us feel, it shouldn't be an excuse, but we can at least say, well, we're participating in a system that exploits people, and that's wrong. And we are contributing to their bad situation by perpetuating this system. But
at least because of what we do, they have a job. Would it be better if they had no job at all?
Exactly. But on Majalis, it's those ambiguities are gone. Like there's no place to hide. It's this one person is literally suffering, and you are all directly benefiting from that suffering, and you all know it, and you are choosing to continue,
and you accept it. You are choosing to accept it,
and you make a virtue of it.
Yeah. Air, Wind, Fire. Yes, that is true. There is currently no ethical consumption under capitalism. However, the emphasis on currently implies that at some point there is.
It's going to magically get ethical at some point.
That doesn't happen. Okay, that doesn't happen. Because capitalism is about, the cancer of ever-growing gains, and that practice is inherently harmful. That's not good. That's not healthy. It's hurtful. It's just not good. Okay. So yeah. Well, Mr. I love the answer also being used to farm chocolate, but yeah, it's not silicon. I know what the mineral is and I can't think of it. I'm getting sleepy.
Oh, I think I know. I can't think of it either, but I know what you mean. Yeah. Yeah.
I am over 40, Steve, and I've not had a nap. So.
But yeah. So overall, what do you think of the episode, and what do you think of it as an unofficial adaptation of The Ones Who Walk Away from Omelas?
I think they did a really good job of adapting that and making it into a story. So.
Oh, good.
A nice little bit, really good job of pulling in some of the other elements of the main characters, like the doctor with the little girl, and
yeah, oh, that's
Pike
true.
in the future with the beep chair, as well as apparently some long lost romance, and tying it into the reason that she met him was because she was looking for alternatives.
Yeah.
And so them knowing that this is not an ideal situation. So yeah, I really like the way they were able to sort of tether it to other elements in their ongoing storylines and to events in those characters' lives. I like that a lot. And of course then the connection that the doctor makes with the dad, and of course that was one of the character turns that I really liked, is when because he was always really harsh, and you get the idea that he was harsh with this kid because he knows what's going to happen.
Yes.
And he's trying to create distance so that the kid doesn't get too attached to him, because he's going to have to do this thing, but also so that he doesn't get too attached to this child that he's going to have to let go of and give over to torture, basically.
And I think I mentioned it kind of already, but I love the turn of the people you think are the bad guys turn out to be the good guys. And that's a really, it's a commonly seen trope, but it's handled really well in this episode, where it's like, oh, the soldier with the coin, and he was helping to kidnap the kid, and he's one of the bad guys. And, then it turns out, actually, no, he was one of the good guys.
He's my son. My son. CMAC, nope. Alas, I have had a sleep test. I don't have sleep apnea. A CPAP machine ain't gonna help. Alas, I'm literally working on this with my doctor. We're gonna get together at the end of August, and I'm gonna say that the evening medicine that they have me on does not seem to be helping. I'm more tired in the morning when I wake up. That has not gone away. Alas, it was supposed to, and I'm still sluggish in the mornings. We'll see if the routine of school helps. That's one of the reasons that I haven't switched meds yet. But yeah, so we'll see. I'm tired of being tired.
I believe you.
Yeah.
Well, shall we close up shop for the night? I feel like we've had a pretty good talk.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed it. I'm so glad we did this.
I'm so glad you liked it. I love watching Star Trek with you no matter what, but it's extra nice when you like the episode. So I really like this episode, and I really like this show. So I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yep. We should do something like this again sometime. If you get any other ideas, let me know at some point. So yeah, don't forget, everybody, check the description. We have a number of nonprofit organizations that Steve has linked there, as well as charitylinks.page if you have the financial ability to do so.
Yes, indeed.
Lend a helping hand. And then also don't forget that if you like Star Trek and you happen to cross this by coincidence, we do this every other Wednesday. So this past Wednesday, we watched Deep Space Nine. Now, next Wednesday, we're going to be watching some Poirot. So we alternate between something that I'm familiar with and Steve hasn't seen, and vice versa. So this past Wednesday, we watched Deep Space Nine, which is new to me. And on the other Wednesdays, alternate Wednesdays, we watch Poirot, which is familiar to me and new to Steve. So we'll be watching the second half of the ABC Murders next Wednesday. The following Wednesday, we'll be back to DS9. Also, if you are a patron on patreon.com, you can go to patreon.com/SteveShives if you want to become one. Or if you are a channel member, which there's a little button down there you can click, as I think Megan did just a little while ago.
That's right. And thank you again, Megan. Yeah, go ahead.
Is it just any patron or member can join? Or is it at a certain level?
You mean for the Hangout?
Yeah.
Yeah, any patron or member at any level gets the link to join the hangout on Sunday.
So yeah. So Sunday, at 11:45, Steve sends out a link to the Zoom meet where we'll all hang out, and then we go live at noon, and we sit around and chit chat for an hour plus ish.
Yeah. Sometimes
So,
a little bit more because everybody likes.
But yeah,
to
that's
talk.
always the last Sunday of the month. And then next week is on Trek Reluctantly is Poirot, and then next Friday we'll be back to Ask Away. So again, if you are a member or a patron, you can send in a question that Steve will read on air live and make something of an attempt to answer.
Or completely refuse to answer if it's one of those if you could choose a character from every Star Trek show to make a crew on your own Star Trek show, it's like, or if you could choose characters from DC Comics to be the crew of a Star Trek show, who would be the captain and first officer and navigator and communications officer and chief engineer and chief of security? I'm like, what? Do you think I researched these before I start this show?
Or if Trump was going to pick somebody other than Vance as his running mate, who would be his best choice?
Beelzebub. Or would that be too? Would they be too similar?
So you would answer that one. Okay, fair enough. I was just thinking.
I'll answer any question if I can think of a funny answer.
Fair enough.
The rule of funny applies.
The rule of funny applies. All right.
All right, that's it, everybody. We'll see you. Hopefully I'll see some of you on Sunday for the patron and member hangout. And then Dana and I will see you on Wednesday for Trek Reluctantly. We can watch the second half of Poirot, the ABC Murders.
Yeah, that'd be great. I do want to answer. Yes. Aaron Fire. You don't have to have your camera on.
That's true.
You want to join? Yeah, you don't have to have the camera on.
You can join the Zoom call and just not have your camera on. That's fine.
See, you can chit chat. It's all great. Yeah. So yeah. Always an option. CMAC would like to see you dance.
Dance for me, monkey.
Let's close with that. Come on, Steve. Dance.
For Timogen, she will dance. That's my dancing.
So you dance like Trump, dude. That's what he does.
No, he does this. He does a hand on either side. He's like, I did.
Okay,
like a little samba kind of thing.
Okay, like, I feel. That's one way in which my forgetting things works in my favor.
This is
forget
the Trump
how
dance, or like what is he even? I don't know what he's even doing.
Maybe he's auditioning for Seinfeld. I've heard that dancing.
Oh, Elaine's dancing. Yes, Elaine's dancing is otherworldly. Yes, it's amazing.
All right,
it's like she's doing an Ed Grimley or something.
Thanks so much for spending your Friday evening or afternoon or Saturday morning or whatever time it is there with us, folks. Enjoyed it very much.
See you next time, everybody. Have a good night. Have a good weekend. Bye.